Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Matthew Mudry, CISO at Alera Group. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past their security. That's where Cyberlinks comes in. We've partnered with the best cybersecurity companies in the world to be able to provide our clients with the best solutions at the best prices. So whether it's managed SIEM, SOC, EDR, MDR, XDR, you name it, we'll help you find the best solution at the best price. Find out more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Matthew, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Alera Group and your role there as CISO?
Sure. So I'm only 4 weeks in with a quick vacation in between. So really 3 weeks in, diving into the weeds. But again, so I'm still learning the business. But what I'd say is Alera Group has a number of different divisions, but their primary focus is really in the employee benefits, property, casualty insurance space, and some wealth management and retirement plan services, depending upon which individual agency you're dealing with. It will depend on which one of those and possibly others they're focused on.
Very nice. Well, now this is obviously not your first CISO role, and you've had quite the career. And I kind of like how I don't think we've had two guests who've been on with the same career path. Their same rise to the top. Can you share your origin story, if you will?
Oh, that's a long one. So I'll try not to bore you to death. But yeah, so my wife will say this. I'm one of the weird ones because I actually like what I do. She says most people don't enjoy what they do, and here I am. If I won the lotto, she thinks I'd probably still, and I probably would have my own company. But anywho, I'm digressing. So I'd say, yeah, I'd say, in reality, I think I got my hands on a computer when I was 14 years old. Took it apart from the moment I got it, put it back together, and then really just figured out how it worked. I go back to the AOL days where you're messing with people in the AOL chats and you're creating your own bots, and it was you'd piss people off, but it was fun, and it helped me understand how everything worked and what the limits or rather no limits were of a computer. Sky was really the limit in some sense when it came to programming, but hardware obviously you had a lot of limitations. So from there, the interest just grew, right? And I went from, I even started off early selling computers at Circuit City. And funny enough, I sold a computer to a very high level executive for People's Bank there. And she was very impressed with it. Apparently she was impressed with my knowledge. And she's like, why don't you come take a look at a role with People's Bank? And, that kind of sprung my career into full motion. So I joined that group around 99, 2000. And I'll be honest, I was very lucky to have held a couple roles within that company because it was rather large. So they did silo their networking team, their desktop team, their networking team. I literally probably spent a year in each one of those different teams and learned networks, learned infrastructure, learned storage, learned the whole gamut. But it was very siloed. But I spent about 5 years there, and then I went on to a different type of company, a mortgage company that did due diligence called Clayton, which was a different animal, but it was fun. I had a great mentor there. But I did everything. I went from very siloed, types of organization to a smaller organization where I did everything. I did the networking, I did the security, I did all the above. And I had a mentor that just kept driving me. He would always tell me, never say I don't know. Tell me you'll find out, and then we're good. So, but really just drove my technical skill sets through the roof. And I feel like that made me rather strong. I won't go through every role I've held, but fast forward. I did realize early on that I liked smaller companies or medium-sized companies better than larger because they're not siloed. I was able to do and kind of get my hands on everything, which was just, I felt like fun for me, just a constant learning curve. But fast forward, I got a really strong technical breadth of everything from security, again, networking, even some programming. But it was until I landed around Castleton Commodities or LGH Energy at the time, which is a commodities trading company. I met another great mentor by the name of Kevin Hall, and he just pushed me even harder, right? And he's the one that convinced me and drove me to say, Matt, your worth isn't really in your technical skill sets. You have a lot to offer from a leadership perspective and a strategy perspective. So he started pushing me and molding me into that leader role. Um, so it took about a year of him just constantly pushing and beating on me, I'll say, metaphorically, but to really take off my tool belt and start truly delegating because I felt like my worth was in my knowledge and my technical skills. So yeah, he pushed me and eventually I did manage to take off that tool belt and learn that there is value in strategy and leadership and building and growing and great teams. So that's really I think where my security career also started. I shouldn't say think. That's where the security career actually started because about, what was it, 4 years in or 3 years in, my COO came to me and he said, you know what, Matt, we're going to separate security from infrastructure. You own both today, but the board wants separations. So yeah, long and short, he gave me an option to stick with infrastructure or build a security team separately. And I enjoyed the challenge as always. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do something new. I'm going to build the security team from the ground up and did that for about almost 2 years, 2 years there, and then left and gracefully left. But I just saw another opportunity to do that all over again for a healthcare company. I saw that opportunity 2 years after that to do with a company called HomeServe, which was a home insurance and warranty company. That was a great point in my life where I was able to build out an organization in the U.S. and then take what we did with the team. The team was phenomenal, but take what the team did and kind of grow that globally, right, for all the different businesses under HomeServe's umbrella. And that was about 7 years I spent doing that, and now here I am in Alera. So I'm hoping to do that all over again. This is what I love.
That's fantastic. Well, I think it was sad, when Circuit City finally went under. I think that was a sad day for all of us. I think we all know where we were when we found when we heard the news.
That's it. That's very true. It was a sad day. I remember at Circuit City, they do spiffs, so you get extra bucks in your pocket for selling like monster cable that was completely. I don't want to. I mean, gosh, it's probably not a good thing to say. You can edit this out, but
Now we'll keep it.
yeah,
Let's
you
do
can
it.
edit this out. But it's for selling these worthless gold-plated cables, like
Yep.
printer cables. Like who needs a gold-plated printer cable? But
Yeah. Right.
I guess people bought them.
It's true. Well, people like they like buying either a premium or a luxury product, and I think those monster cables. I don't think they actually qualified as premium because I don't think you got anything by gold plating that. You just paid more for a more luxurious item, which I think those were early days of luxury tech, right?
That's true. Yeah, they're
They
just
were,
thicker cables and they looked good.
yep, no, 100%. So you going back though in your path when you were I like that transition from the tech skills to the leadership. So how far in were you? Like how many years had you been working in tech before your was it did you say it was Larry Hall? What was his name? The
Oh, Kevin Hall
Kevin
was
Hall.
I'll say my direct manager there. He was the CTO there. But yeah, a phenomenal mentor. Yeah, I was about 12 or 13 years into my career, my tech career, right? If I start
Yeah.
from People's Bank, not actually down to the tinkering of computers, but within my career,
Yeah.
about 12, 13 years. He saw something in me that clearly I didn't see.
So, well, I mean, I like that because I think that's so important. I mean, so many people that we talk to who've kind of been successful and made it to the top, in the field, it's because they've had, the assistance from great people, right? They've had mentors, they've had cheerleaders, who open doors for them and help them see things like with you that, hey, you know what? It's funny because you could take that two ways. You could be like, "Hey, wait, my tech skills aren't that great," or you could take it as, as the compliment. I'm sure it was that you have these skills that a lot of other people don't, where leadership may be in your future and helps cultivate and grow that.
Yeah.
So I think that's just such an important piece.
And it's funny you say that because there's really two pieces that I'm thinking about now when you say that, right? There's that taking off the tool belt, I think is one piece of the puzzle. The other part, which Kevin would always tell me, is take off your cowboy hat. Right. So I'd always just want to make the next change, buy the coolest tech. I was still very immature then. And I really wasn't looking at the business and what the business was trying to accomplish. I was just
Right.
looking at how we can progress the technology. And looking back now, I chuckle. because that was also something him and the COO, who I had a great relationship at the time. His name was Mukesh Nair. He was pushing me more on that front, like Matt, know the business, and I have Kevin on their side, take up your tool belt. So it was really like two people in both my ears. One saying, understand the business and drive technology and security that way, and then take up your tool belt, delegate all the things, and build the strategy and leadership on this front. So it was a challenging time in my life, but look, when I look back at it, I'm so grateful and humbled by it, and it was just it's great. And now obviously I'd love to turn that into mentoring others and trying to get others to kind of follow that same, that same path.
Yeah, I was going to say, so how did that translate into your kind of leadership style, and what did, have you taken that same sort of of approach? I mean, how's that transformed things for you?
No, it's a great question, right? So I see, you see yourself in sometimes in some of your team members, and I do see it often, and that's the one thing that I'll say drives me crazy now is I see folks just trying to make changes quickly and not realizing how they're impacting the end users of their business, and I just got to take a step back and be like, I remember when I was there,
Yeah.
but it helps the conversation because I can literally talk to people and my team members is saying I was exactly where you are, and it took me a while, and it helps me be more patient with them too because I know how long it took me to get over that hump, and bless Magesh and Kevin for being patient with me because now I have to be that person that's patient. But it was tough, but yeah, now I'm more patient with them, and I just continue to remind them, and not not don't beat them with the stick. It's the carrot approach, but just continue to remind them, and eventually they get it right. I see it happening now, especially with my old team over at HomeServe. They're starting to really understand. Look, the business is really the most important thing we got to look out for, not just driving cool tech and being the most secure.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a real challenge for people because, we love the technology. It's kind of what got us into the industry in the first place. We enjoy it when new stuff comes out. We enjoy playing with it, learning with, and I think, technology has advanced so rapidly, during our careers that it's never been boring, right? It's never been stagnant. You can't just like, oh, this is the way we do it because we've always done it. That's crazy. Why are you still on Windows XP? That's just nuts. You can't be doing like, so that's not even a thing. So we're constantly getting to play with new toys and new technology and and there's new challenges, new threats, new vulnerabilities. So it's constant, which I think is really fun and keeps us engaged. But to your point, balancing that with the business needs is the real challenge because you can go out and buy all the cool shiny new toys and bankrupt the company just by buying all the cool tech out there, and now the company can't operate because you've consumed. So obviously that's an extreme example and nobody would
Yeah.
ever let you do that, but it does put it into perspective. How do you go about kind of getting people to understand that balance between the technology and the business?
Yeah, yeah, it's hard, right? And especially when you come up in like my world, like the technical elements, and it's really hard to change a mindset. It's a mindset, right? It's a whole cultural shift for technologists to say, I'm going to now pay attention to everything I didn't want to do, and the business. How does finance work? How does marketing work? How does but all these drivers versus the cool stuff in the tech. And it's funny because when you were talking about that, I was thinking to myself on a technical perspective, I'm like a vendor's best friend. I truly will geek out, and I'm the guy that'll pay the money to go to Black Hat, not sit in one speech because all they are going to just make me stressed out because I hear about all their horror stories and the breaches that have happened to them and how they fix problem X and Y. But that's all you've heard it all. I go to the vendor hall downstairs. There's probably like 300 vendors down there. I literally go to every single vendor and spend a couple of minutes with each one of them. And it's funny because you realize these vendors are all there with a specific use case or a specific challenge that they solved for already. And you'll sit down and talk to one of them. I shouldn't say sit. You're standing, but you're standing there while you get a free T-shirt or a pen or something. But you stand there and you're talking to them and you're like, "Holy crap! I didn't know I had that problem. You solved this?" And so you're like it's almost like a scare tactic plus but you solve it well for X amount of dollars, yes. But it's really funny, and a lot of the technologies I brought into my companies have happened that way just by meeting vendors and realizing, wow, you're solving a problem that sounds like it's something we're not even thinking about yet. So getting there first is obviously very important. But it also scares you a little bit more. I would probably say it scares you a little better than those speeches that can bore the brains out of you.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. In fact, I hate taking cold calls now. I don't take them anymore because I'll be like, oh, that's great. Yeah, I should get that. Not like, oh shit, I just bought another. It's like I have the hardest time saying no because I'm like, well, that's a great idea and that's a great product, but do we need it? No, we don't. But that's great. They do. They solve the problem, and so why not? So yeah, I've had to cut myself off.
100%.
That's great. So let me ask you. So when it comes to mentoring, right? And I think at home serve, you probably got to do a whole lot more of it than you have in the last 3 weeks of onboarding at Alera. So what's your approach there? Do you like kind of the more formal approach? Is it much? Do you prefer the kind of informal human approach? What's your approach? I know everybody's got their own take on it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you can gather by just talking to me at this point. I'm very informal in most cases, right? I try to keep things very informal. I try to, keep things at the same level. Very rarely you'll hear me say my team, right? I'm part of the team just as much as the rest of them. So it's really the team. So I really, when you talk about mentorship, very informal. I just try to coach where I can. And if somebody comes to me and says, look, I really want to be mentored, this is my next step, or and so it's really diving down into what is your real next step, because you may tell me you want to be X, and I may interpret that as Y. So it's really, also discussing about what does really X mean. You want to be a cybersecurity analyst. Do you want to be an engineer? Do you want to be a CISO? Where do you want to go in your career? But let's dive down in that. And then also it's the next steps, same kind of scenarios. You may tell me you want to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to interpret them differently. So interpreting them is a very broad, or I should say broad, long conversation, just to making sure we're on the same page. And it's informal, I think, for the most part, right? Having formal touch points is important, right? So for somebody who truly wants to be mentored, is it's important to at least meet on a regular basis, regular cadence, once a week at most, and just have them walk through kind of an agenda. Most recently, somebody I was mentoring, I'll say formally mentoring, had trouble with organization, and I'm not the best person when it comes to organization, I'll be honest, but there are certain things I do to try to stay organized. And one of them is just sending a status report, as we remember from the movie Office Space, right? That TPS report.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
But that TPS report keeps me honest. So I go through that TPS report on a Thursday, and I'm like, holy crap, I forgot, to address X or Y. Along with my notepad, I have a separate notepad of just follow-ups, and I'll just throw things in my calendar. But creating that organizational, so I think the goal with that mentor was answer the questions your boss is going to ask you before he asks. And that was always the best goal I've learned from my previous mentors, is just make sure you're in front of those things, because when they have to ask you, it's exhausting. So hopefully you can try to get those in front of them. And then I'll tell you a quick brag story. There was a gentleman that I did mentor, brilliant guy. He did this all on his own. I just kind of helped pave the way a little bit, right? But his mother used to work for my wife, and my wife's in HR. She heads up HR for a manufacturing company. So you can imagine the HR horror stories that exist there.
Right.
But her son was just looking to get into cybersecurity. He had a military background, just wasn't able to break into it. Kept going to school, kept going to school, kept going to school. I'm like, stop going to school, get a job, and let's put all this stuff you learned into school. Let's put this to the test. And at the time, I didn't have a role for him, but I talked to him once a month, and I was like, "Hey, try this, And over time, I got to know him, and I'm like, "Oh, this is a really smart guy. Maybe I should onboard him." So I actually made a role for him on my team as a security analyst, brought him on board, and we spent, I'll say, every couple of weeks we spent some time. We spent a month mentoring him. He never stopped going to school, by the way, which is a good thing. But he at least had a job now where he can put all those trainings and things he learned in the school to the test.
Right.
And I feel like that started to round him even to a stronger individual. But long and short is that same individual, we worked together for, I'd say, about 2 years or a year and a half. And then I ended up leaving that organization. That was the healthcare company, and landed, with the home serve company, with the home warranty company. Sorry.
Mhm.
And he ended up leaving and going somewhere else too. And 6 months later, I had him on a roll. I'm like, hey, come work for me again. You did great. So again, started working for me, and then finally, but I always told folks, and I'm digressing a bit, but I always told folks, and two times it's bit me in the butt. This was the second time, but I've always told folks, I'm going to make you the best version of yourself. And that means I'm going to try to push you to take your trainings. I'm going to just push you to be better every chance I get. And that may lead you to leaving. And some of the advice I've always given is, look, sticking with the same industry is not great, and sticking with the same company, in my opinion, for 10 years is not great either, right? You become, I'll say, stagnant or complacent. You need
Yeah.
different industry experience, different knowledge, different, all just different. And it bit me in the butt when a gentleman by the name of Dan left HomeServe because he went to an energy company. But after about 4 years, he was an intern and spent 4 great years with us and left. And it was good. I was happy to, it was one of those times where you're happy to see somebody leave because he's like, well, crap, he just listened to my advice and now he's leaving, but he's doing better for himself. But same kind of thing here. This gentleman, his name was George. We called him Danny, different Danny. But he ended up coming to my office one day. I'll never forget. And he goes, Matt. He goes, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I'm gonna be putting my resignation. And he was, obviously, feeling a bit sad. He could tell. And I said, all right. I said, but is it for your dream job? And he's like, it is. I'm like, then I say nothing. And I knew at the time what his dream job, which is to join the NSA, and be
Nice.
on their cyber team. So he's with the NSA on the cyber team. And then he called me about 9 months ago, a year ago, and he said, I got my dream job. I said, wait a minute. You got your dream job, when you left me. And he's like, no, no, no. He goes, but now I'm on the offensive cyber team. I'm like, all right, that's really cool. I get it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's sweet. No, that's bittersweet, right? I mean, because you've done your job, you've helped them grow, you've given them the right perspective, and then they leave you,
yeah,
which you want. But I mean, it's kind of like having kids, right? But after 18 years, you want them to go.
that's right. That's right. You don't want to live in your basement. I heard you're a successful parent if you don't have any kids living in your basement. No offense to anybody that has it.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We're all on our own path. Not everybody launches at the same time, but yeah, ideally out by 18, right? That's fantastic.
I do.
So, okay, so let's kind of explore that a little further, right? With when it comes to the mentoring and kind of I like this whole I agree with you. I think moving, kind of every couple of years is really smart. Do you think it's also, I mean, is it purely I mean, financially it's obviously better, right? It's hard.
Hopefully,
I think that's the real challenge though, and I think the younger generations are starting to see that if you go and you stay in the company for 10 years, you keep getting passed up. They bring in other people for these promotions. They're bringing people in from outside. You get passed up. So why would you stay in that company for a long time
right.
versus just moving to another company every couple of years? You get your promotion, you get your pay raise, you get a new industry. Like you were saying, I think there's real value
Yeah,
in going and getting experience in another company, in another industry, see things from another perspective. Now,
yeah.
do you think this is going to be, the kind of status quo moving forward? Or do you see it kind of moving back to where people are going to, want that kind of stability of, no, I just want to stay here? Or will we always have a split?
Yeah, no, I think it depends on the person, right? I think that's really what it boils down to. And again, it comes down to passion, right? When I interview folks, I interview for passion and culture, and are they a fit with the team? Are they passionate about what they're doing? Because for me, I don't want to have to keep pushing them and telling them what to do. If they're passionate and they really like what they're doing, they're going to be successful no matter what I throw at them. Versus the folks that come in with the degrees and they're like, I accomplished X, Y, and Z, and or somebody told them to do X, Y, and Z. So, those are the folks I tend to shy away from. But to answer your question, I think it really does depend on this on the individual. My father, funny enough, he spent what was it, 45 years with what finally ended up being, which was Bank of America. And every day he tells me, boy, I regret staying for a company for that long and going with that 3, 4, 5% raise year over year over year. He goes, it amounted to nothing at the end of the day. I did get my big jumps in between, but I feel like he was the type of person that, liked comfort and knowing, it's kind of this maintaining the same kind of routine every day. I'm not a routine based person. I want something new, something fresh, something, different. If I wake up in the morning and do the same thing for a week, it drives me crazy. I got to change it up, or, maybe I'll go grab a coffee one morning, or I'll go run. It has to be different. So I think, to answer your question, it comes down to the person.
No, I am well, I'm the same way. I can't have the same day twice. It bothers me. Now, interestingly enough, though, I don't like traveling and like trying to work and travel like at the same time. Like I like having like a space that's set up, my office, great. But I just don't want the day to be the same, even though I want the location to be the same. It's kind of weird. You would think that it would be, but I digress. So, you mentioned when it comes to hiring that you're about culture and what was it? You didn't say
Passion,
personality. What's that? Passion.
passion,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's brilliant. Can you go into that a little bit more? Because I think for a lot of people, I think we all get, kind of, the culture of the organization. And I think that's been, I don't think that can be emphasized enough. I think that's the, perhaps the most important thing is, the corporate culture. But when it comes to the passion, what is it that you're looking for, kind of specifically when you go to hire people, and how do you judge for that? I mean, is it, you obviously can't ask, are you passionate about tech? Yes, I am. Yeah. Okay. You
Right.
sold me. Yeah. You're hired. So how do you go about it?
It's funny you say it. It's a great question, and I think it's a really simple question. What I always ask him is, talk to me about your home network setup. Talk to me about the computer. Did you build your own computer? And those immediately, because I had a conversation with I think my cousin a while back, and he's like, oh, I was thinking about getting a cybersecurity. I'm like, what kind of computer do you got at home? He's like, I don't know. I bought it at like Circuit City or Best Buy, and I'm like, maybe you want to go down a different road. So it's funny. So when they say, oh, I got this Comcast modem, and I don't know, I'm like, you're not passionate. That to me, that if you're passionate, you're going to tinker with things at home. You're going to tinker with things that while you're at work. I mean, at one point, I bought. My team was a bunch of geeks. I'm actually looking for it in my drawer, but just because we were all passionate, I ended up going out and buying them all these.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Flippers.
Now
Nice.
I regretted it within the first week because one of them figured out how to shut down all the cell phones in the office, but that's beside the point, and I'm digressing. But yeah, it was fun. But yeah, passion is it's really, what do you do? What do you do on your own because you love this career? To look to
Yeah.
keep fresh, keep learn. Like I said, it's usually an easy question about what's your home network, what's your home computer, and then from there, we start geeking out, and I'm like, oh, tell me about your video card, tell me about your, why do you have that big of a processor? How do do you overclock it? And it's just,
Yeah.
it gets in a crazy conversation.
Now, you know what? I think that that's spot on because it's funny. My brother was the same way. Came to me about, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I know he's not watching. So he came to me about wanting to get into programming. And he's like, hey, what languages should I be looking at? I was like, oh, great, here you go. And I sent him some stuff, and I was like, it's never gonna work. I mean, he's one of those guys who likes, he likes he likes anime and smoking pot and playing video games. And I'm like, I get that, that programming seems more enjoyable than, whatever job you may be doing right now. But you're not going to be successful at it if you're just now like, oh, let's get into. I mean, I've been programming since I was like 12.
Yeah,
When my
right.
dad brought home the first computer, and I started programming because it just booted into BASIC, and it came with this manual. And great, so there we go. And I spent my nights and weekends growing up, slinging code for all these different companies because I like doing that. And so I was like, so I should have just told him immediately, like, you know what? What have you been programming in? And be like, and what things have you like? Nothing. But then, is it? But at the same time, you hear all these success stories of guys like who were truckers. They were driving truck, and then they went to some boot camp, and now they've got a job in tech, and they love it. So at the same time, I don't want to kind of be all disparaging and encourage him not, to dissuade him from following what might be a passion, but long story short, it's been a few years, and he didn't finish the course and he didn't do anything. So I think it's safe to say he didn't, follow that passion. But I think you're right. I think that's a great way if somebody's, applying for a tech job, asking them about their, what they do at home, their home rig, their home, whatever, and see how I think that's brilliant. That's
Yeah. But again, it spawns the conversations, and it also helps. You got to be careful what you're asking these days. With you don't want to get into age conversations, or But that comes out right when you start talking about you're not supposed to ask about the family. But to me, family's first, right? Family's first, and I'll say my job comes second. Maybe there's other things in between that I'm forgetting, but family's first. Health. Health. There you go. Health and family are first.
yeah.
Then your career, your job. And and understanding that kind of people have the same values. I try to bring that out of them and understand, like, is your family really important to you, or is obviously your health. Hopefully, health is important to everybody, but sharing the same values, the same culture is huge for building a team that truly values each other. We spend 10 hours a day, maybe less, maybe more, with those same people. So they're your work family. And, I feel guilty. I used to feel guilty when I felt, I was impacting somebody else's role by having them work more hours because I wasn't, putting up my end of the bargain. And when you build a good team, you see that, right? I have my team going, I really want to help, so and so with this change because he's already worked all weekend. And that's the culture you want, right? And that's the culture where you're not only you're gonna get along, you're gonna be successful in whatever your team's doing, whether it's building out a security program, an IT infrastructure, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, Matt, this has been an absolute blast. And I think we could do this all day. And I'd love to. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and more about the Alera Group?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, I'll say the World Wide Web, or as they said it in the movie, what, intern on the line.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, no, I'd say reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to take some mentorship opportunities if you really want to break into the space. It's not easy, but reach out to me, and I'll hopefully get back to you. There is a lot of folks reaching out and looking to connect, but just put something in the description there that says mentorship, looking for real guidance, something snazzy or what's the word I'm looking for? Something eye catching. And hopefully I'll respond to it. But yeah, again, I love doing these things. These are fun. I'm getting more into writing some articles, doing podcasts, and just building my brand. But because it's fun, right? Not just because there's value in it, but it's really fun. And I do learn from these these interactions. I do learn a lot.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on, and thanks for being the first person to reference Office Space, which I absolutely love that movie. I don't think I go maybe more than a few weeks without at least thinking about it. Even so.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say it's actually funny you say that. I did a skit, security awareness skit at my last company, HomeServe, all based around HomeServe, and the end of the skit ended with a bunch of people smashing and kicking a printer. So
nice. That's awesome. Well, thanks, Matt. And until next time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.